Hello to all Cinemaster lovers.
Nine tails.
Hope you enjoy watching. Let's get started. The movie begins with this strange man taking out a bullet and placing it on the bar. The girl becomes tense the moment she sees the bullet. He says to her, "Tell me, when is a door not a door?" She replies, "I don't understand." He repeats, "When is a door not a door?" Another man interjects, saying, "She doesn't understand what I mean. Let me explain again. When is a door not a door?" She answers, "When the door is open." He says, "Exactly, like one of these." She looks behind her and he says, "This is the game I've been searching for. It has distinctive marks, 3 spiraled baskets connected." She says, "We don't know who you are or what you're talking about. Get out of here." He looks at the spice containers and says, "These containers are made from the wood of a sacred tree. This tree's wood was used to hold Keystone. Keystone is a spirit of deception." She responds, "What are you talking about? These containers are filled with spices." Her colleague asks, "So why are you here?" The man replies, "You know why I came here, dumper." At that moment, everyone in the restaurant draws their weapons. The girl grabs the container and runs. The man chases her, shooting her in the leg. She falls to the ground and the container slips from her hands. She looks at him and her eyes begin to change. Dumper grabs her and runs, filled with rage. He transforms and flies, but he is eventually brought down. Hey Carrie screams as the man retrieves the container. She warns him, "You won't be able to control it." The container moves on its own. The spirit inside it says, "Free me from here." The man responds, "Not before you make me a promise." The spirit replies, "You want revenge on him, his companions, and everyone he loves. I'll give you what you want, but first, free me from this cursed container." He agrees, and they leave together. The scene shifts to a group preparing to save the girl and her dog. Indeed, the alpha approaches the girl, and she warns him, "Don't come near the dog. It will bite you." He kneels, and the dog, initially aggressive, calms down when it looks into his eyes. Suddenly, the place begins to collapse. The girl climbs onto his back as he transforms again. He takes the girl and jumps up, returning her to her parents, who are overjoyed to have her back. They treat the dog, and one of them says, "Close the shop, let's leave." As the shop is closed, a woman stands in front of the door. The man turns to look again, but she has disappeared. He enters, and Arjan appears, pointing a weapon at him, ready to kill. But Scott grabs his hand and embraces him. He asks, "Why didn't you come through the front door?" Arjan replies, "I never use the front door. It's not safe." Scott asks, "Who told you it's not safe?" Arjan responds, "Don't play dumb. You see it too. It's like you're dreaming about it." He continues, "For years her image appeared to me, but it was faint, unclear. 2 weeks ago, something changed. The image became as clear as daylight. I saw her screaming, suffering, and in pain before me. I realized her face was vividly clear. Then I began to hear her voice, and someone whispered in my ear." Scott asks, "What are you talking about?" Arjan replies, "Exactly what I'm telling you. There's a word I hear when I'm about to sleep, or as soon as I wake up. That word is Bardo." Shocked, Arjan explains, "Do you know what this word means?" "It means between life and death." Scott exclaims, "Impossible. Allison died before my eyes." Arjan responds, "This must be a message from her because she's still alive." Scott asks, "After 15 years she's still alive?" Helm says, "What should we do now?" Arjan replies, "There are rituals to perform. I know a little about them. Everything we need can be found at Hills. These rituals must be done during the full moon. If we miss this chance, we won't get another." Helm warns, "These rituals are ancient and very dangerous." Scott declares, "End of discussion. We'll perform the rituals and save Allison." Helm says, "This message is for you. It's your decision whether to act on it." Arjan adds, "It's more than a message." He opens a box and says, "This is the sword that killed Allison." Scott responds, "If none of us can handle this mission, I'll bring my old friends to help us." Meanwhile, a man is with an employee, holding Allison's file. He asks, "Who is this Allison?" She looks at the file and finds her name in a specific place. She enters her office and starts writing strange things. At the same time, someone steals a Jeep. The sheriff is informed about the theft. He says, "Let me be the one to tell his father." Drake enters and comments to the sheriff, "You were right. The fire wasn't caused by gasoline. It was a chemical substance." The sheriff says, "Your son stole the Jeep again." At that moment, the thief stops at a traffic light. He notices something strange and follows it, only to find. He notices something strange and follows it, only to find the car stopped with a flat tire. His father arrives and says, "I won't pay for the mess you've caused." The son retorts, "You will." Suddenly, the sheriff and his deputy arrive. Meanwhile, Scott reaches the location where Allison died. Lydia comes to him. She says, "Thank you for coming." She hugs him and pulls out the paper she wrote in her office. She tells him the first thing they need is some soil from the place where she died. Scott hits the ground and takes some soil. They wrap it in a piece of cloth. Then, they go to meet Allison's father. As soon as Lydia takes out the papers, Jackson enters. Scott asks him, "What are you doing here?" He replies, "None of your business. Lydia called me and asked for help, so I came for her." Lydia thanks Jackson. Jackson takes the papers and spreads them out on the ground, trying to figure out the drawings. Eventually, the drawings form a tree. Lydia says, "What is this?" "The sacred grove." Meanwhile, Malia is with her boyfriend Parrish. Lydia texts her, "Call me." Malia tells Parrish, "Sorry, I have to leave now." She leaves and goes to meet Lydia and Scott. After greetings, Malia says, "Let's go find what you're here for. By the way, Hey, are you searching for the tree at night or during the day? No one answers her, so she sits on the ground and says, this isn't the direction of the tree. This is the direction. Scott warns them, be careful. Someone is following us. He goes back and catches the person. Malia recognizes him and says, that's Derek's son. The boy asks them, what are you looking for? Malia says, walk lightly. He replies, don't be vague. I know exactly what you're looking for. You're searching for the tree, right? Malia asks, can you take us there? He says, the tree isn't far from here. Let me show you. He leads them to the tree. Lydia pulls out the sword that was used to knight Allison. Scott asks her, what's wrong? Are you feeling something? She replies, something strange. Suddenly, dust flies off Scott and he runs to the tree. The sword flies out of Lydia's hand and embeds itself in the middle of the tree. Then the sword disappears and everything becomes calm. They wait for a long time, but nothing happens. Frustrated, they start to leave. Scott calls them back. They turn around and see a gap behind the tree. Suddenly, Allison appears on the tree. Everyone is in complete shock and disbelief that Allison is alive. They take her to the car and leave. Scott takes her to his mom at the hospital. Meanwhile, the monster goes to the tree. The sword emerges from the tree again. The monster says, finally, chaos, conflict, and pain. At that moment, Allison regains consciousness. She doesn't understand what's happening around her and remembers nothing about her life. Allison leaves the room and walks away. Scott and his friends search for her. Malia finds her, but Allison performs a move to escape and runs away. She encounters two police officers, takes down the first, and knocks out the second. Scott arrives and is overjoyed to see her. He runs to her and holds her, but she tells him, don't touch me. They stare at each other, and the scar on his face disappears. She punches him and asks, who are you? He replies, I'm Scott McCall. She asks, Scott who? Where's Derek? She throws scissors at him and runs away. Her father appears in front of her, but she doesn't recognize him. She prepares her gear, but hears someone moving. She goes inside and finds the monster. She asks, who are you? He replies, I'm your ally. She says, but I don't know you. He says, Allison, it's time for revenge. I want you to kill the werewolves and Scott who destroyed my family. She says, Scott? I don't remember that name. He assures her, you will remember everything, and I'll help you. She says, but I don't trust you. He changes his form to resemble her mother and says, surely you trust your mother. She says, you're lying. My mother is dead. The monster hugs her and says, I'm here for you. You must eliminate Scott and Derek, who have killed many innocent people and destroyed our family. Meanwhile, Derek is sitting with his son. Suddenly, an arrow is shot at them, but Derek pulls his son down and the arrow hits the cabinet. Allison enters with a knife, but someone else intervenes and says, Allison. She tries to attack, but they throw her aside. She attacks with an arrow to the neck, and he falls to the ground, seemingly defeated. However, Dumper catches the arrow before it reaches him. She shoots another arrow at him, but this time it grazes her shoulder. She turns and burns him. At that moment, Scott and Malia arrive. Allison escapes from them. Derek tells Scott to leave him and go after Allison. They take Derek to the hospital. Meanwhile, the monster and his allies attack the precinct, taking down officers one by one. The monster vanishes. At the same time, Peter heals Derek with fire. She tries to attack Allison, but she skillfully counters and defeats him. She prepares to shoot him with an arrow, but Scott arrives just in time and tells her, enough, Allison. She shoots an arrow at him, but he deflects it with his hand. Scott takes Allison and runs away. She chases them, but hides behind a car. Scott says, we need to run. To heal your wound, you need to transform. He transforms, and his wound heals. Allison continues to chase them, but Scott and Allison return to Derek. Meanwhile, the monster and his allies attack the monastery. The remaining members confront Dumper and Hikaru on the road. Dumper gets angry, and his body begins to transform. Hikaru draws her sword, and the fight begins, with no one gaining the upper hand. The black ones are in the forest, and no one can confront them, but the officer is finishing them off, and they're also finishing off Derek. They disappear. Derek's son and Malia try to escape, but his son also gets caught. At that moment, Malia pulls the curtain, and as soon as they see the light, they vanish. Scott takes a hit on the field, but Scott is injured in his chest. Vadik puts her hand on his face, but the beast appears to her. He tells her his state, but history is full of criminals like him. At that moment, everyone who was killed finds themselves tied up in a strange place, still alive and not dead. Scott tells her, you died in my arms, and if you want me to prove my words, I'm ready to prove it. She tells him, you're a liar. He tells her, give me a chance and I'll prove it. And if you don't believe me, let me die. She tells him, if I give you the chance, he tells her, then you have to save me. And indeed, she helps him. And she brings that flare to cauterize his wound. She burns the wound, and from the intensity of the pain, he screams. His beast friends hear his cries. Lita tells them something is wrong. The beast creates a barrier between our world and hers. Parrish is the only one who can break that barrier. And indeed, Parrish transforms. He tries to break the barrier. At the same time, Allison and Scott are busy fighting the men. The beasts surround Allison, and it's a mistake that they kill her. But Lita uses her powers, screams, and finishes off the beast entirely. At that moment, the Marks remember everything. They recall their love for each other. They remember her father and mother. But the beast tells them the game isn't over yet. He has his hands on Derek's son. Scott tells him, let them go and take me instead. He tells him, all the souls here belong to me. He tells him, all you need is me. Take me and leave them. Let the Marks kill me, and I'll die in her arms just like she died in mine. That way, you win the game. He tells him, I've already won. He tells him, you've lost because you won't win unless I'm out of the game, but I'm still in the game and still the same as before, like the alpha. He tells him, let Allison shoot you with an arrow in your heart to save her soul and the rest of her friends. And indeed, Allison shoots an arrow at him, then another, and another. Scott falls to the ground. Allison runs to him and indeed the beast leaves him. The beast tells Scott, "What does it feel like to die as a wolf?" He tells him, "Who said I'm going to die?" Scott uses his supernatural powers and burns the arrows in his heart. The beast is shocked. Scott showcases his skills and gives the fiery wolf power to Hikari. Allison raises the bow and strikes the beast with an arrow in his head. The beast screams, and Parrish arrives at the place at the right time. The beast reveals his true face, and everyone stands in shock. Scott and his men transform, and they all gather around him. At that moment, it's Parrish's time, who, with the fiery power, can finish him off. Everyone holds on to the beast, but no one can stop him. Derek throws Scott and his son. He tells Parrish, "Finish us both." And indeed, Parrish uses the fiery power. He finishes off the beast on his own. Derek sacrifices himself to save his friend and finishes off the beast. Everyone is deeply saddened by Derek's death. Scott and his beloved return through the door, and Liam takes his father's place. And here the movie ends. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, activate the notification bell,